face-to-face segment. Today our guest is Professor Subramani, who is a professor in literature in the University of South Pacific. Professor Subramani, welcome to Fiji TV.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
Professor, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a writer from Fiji, and I'm also a university academic. I have been working at the University of the South Pacific for a number of years. I have served at the university as an administrator, and I have been teaching writing and post-colonial literature to students. I have been actively involved in civil society work. I have been involved in reviewing the Fiji's education system and also Fiji's constitution. And recently I got very much involved in looking at the situation of poverty in Fiji.
Speaking about your work in poverty, I understand that you gave an address in Sydney about the subject too.
I was invited by an Indo-Fijian group to talk about Girmit, and in that context I spoke about poverty. Girmit is of historical importance, and I thought at that time that the more critical issue was poverty, and therefore I spoke on that issue to see how the audience would respond to this very critical problem in Fiji.
I believe that particular talk you gave in 2003 has inspired a film about poverty in Fiji. Once Were Farmers was made by Satish Rai.
Well, I didn't know that Satish Rai was in the audience. I didn't even know him at that time. I was very happy that there was somebody who was moved by what I had to say, and very rewarding that in the end it resulted in a very fine film on the subject of poverty.
You have now seen the film Once Were Farmers. Are you happy with what has been achieved?
Yeah, I think it is a very effective film. I think it is very well put together. It is a topical issue, and therefore it's very relevant to Fiji. It's a very critical issue. I was also very moved by the passion which had gone into making the film, and I understand that it was made with very limited resources and all by Satish Rai himself, and that has to be said, and he has to be congratulated for doing that. I think as a film, as a documentary film, it works very well. I was particularly moved by the images in the film. Although there is a lot of commentary about poverty and what is happening to displaced Indian farmers. But for me, the most appealing aspect of the film was the various faces that I saw. And each of those faces, they tell a story. And those stories are really very disturbing, very shattering stories.
Professor, you mentioned that certain images in this movie really moved you. Would you like to talk about one such image which really touched your heart?
There were many such images, and I think part of the strength of the documentary is that there are so many faces which touch you and appeal to you. If I were to select one face, the face of an old man, and it is a face of helplessness and despair in Ba. But it's not only the face that is being interviewed, but the surrounding cast. They also have faces which express deep feelings. And I think this is good filmmaking because all the details are carefully attended to, and it was very natural. And I think it ought to move a lot of people. That was probably one image, and then there was an image of a girl who was talking about her ambitions, how she wanted to get out of that situation, and I think that was also a very touching story. But the way she expressed it, her face, the movement of her eyes and gestures was so perfect, as if she was performing in a film. But it was all part of that story that the documentary was trying to tell. So I'd say that the major part of the film consists of these faces, and I think that's a very effective way of storytelling. The film is laid with a lot of commentary. For me, the commentaries didn't move as much as the images.
This film was shot in late 2003. Has the situation changed since?
Well, let's begin by saying that poverty has always been an integral part of Fiji Indian life, although it has not been acknowledged by any of the governments, neither the colonial government nor the Fijian governments that came into power later. But in recent years, there has been a new kind of poverty that has been manufactured by the consequences of the military coups and also by displacement of farmers. This is a very artificial kind of poverty that has occurred. So I would say that while the poverty that was always there has been aggravated by political events in Fiji, but the recent poverty that has affected the Fiji Indian people has become much more extensive, and the eviction of farmers and displacement continues. And I think there is a kind of irreversible situation as far as poverty is concerned, and larger portion of Fijian population becoming poor. Only a very small segment of business people and a small percentage of middle class who are well off. But I think the overwhelming percentages of people in Fiji are moving towards a very dire situation as far as poverty is concerned.
So, Professor, what do you think that should happen now?
Since we are talking about the film, I think the film should be seen very widely in Fiji as well as in the diaspora. And it's a pity that such a well-made film hasn't been seen by a lot of people. Film is a very powerful medium. It can communicate very effectively the situation of the poor in Fiji. And I think there ought to be also extensive discussion. There should be forums within Fiji and in the diaspora where these issues can be discussed, but we should not leave it at discussion level. There should be some action. I feel that the government would be able to do very little as far as poverty is concerned, because there are so many vested interests and other priorities and agendas and so on. Those who are in the kind of non-political area, I think, will be able to make a lot of impact, because they're truly concerned about the issue of poverty. So I would say that first the film should be viewed, and should be viewed very extensively wherever possible. And there ought to be a discussion where the conscience of people ought to be raised, and then there ought to be some action.
Professor, you mentioned that this film has not been seen by a large audience. What do you think are the reasons for this?
There is the larger problem of distribution of any form of art among Fiji Indians. Not only films, but also books and CDs and videos. I think this problem is a very serious one. There are a number of films that are being made, and there are a lot of people who are writing now. These works got to circulate if they have to have any kind of impact. We need distribution. We need people who will take a responsibility for circulating films and books. And so far, not much interest has been shown. You can't expect the filmmaker and the writer to be distributor as well. You got to have other people come in. And I think that hasn't happened, and that is why we haven't seen the film as extensively as we ought to have. Second problem is that there is a little trust in what the Fiji Indians have created themselves. The Fiji Indian audience would prefer seeing film from Bollywood and Hollywood, etc., and read novels and plays and short stories written by writers overseas. They haven't yet cultivated the confidence that is necessary in trusting your own filmmakers and in your own writers. I think it's a bit of a colonial hangover, and it requires decolonizing the Fiji Indian mind.
I think it's quite true. Well, at least at this point in time, with TVS, we have an opportunity to reach out to a wider audience with this film. On this note, let's have a look at the film now. And Professor, once our viewers had a chance to see the film, we may invite you once again to share your views about the film.
I'll be very happy to come again, and I'm very glad that this is happening.
Professor, thank you very much for taking time off your busy schedule and being with us here in our studio today. That brings us to the end of the face-to-face segment.
Thanks, Chandi. Now let's watch the first episode of Once Were Farmers.
Once Were Farmers is about some of the evicted Indo-Fijian farmers in Fiji. In order to understand their plight, we briefly go back in history of their ancestors. On 15th May 1879, the first Indian indentured workers, the Girmitias, arrived in Fiji.
अगले वर्ष 125 वर्ष हो जाएंगे भारतीयों का आगमन हुए यहाँ। हमारा खून पसीना बहा है। इस देश को आबाद हमने किया। हमारा भी कोई हक बनता है, कोई अधिकार बनता है, नागरिकता।
By the end of this system, in 1916, some 60,000 Girmitias had arrived in Fiji to toil on the barren lands for the Anglo-Saxon owned plantations. With simple tools such as knives, axes, hoes, and with bare hands, they cleared the land and prepared them for crops. Addressing some evicted farmers living in a squatter settlements in Lambasa, former Prime Minister of Fiji and the present parliamentary leader of the Labour Party, Mr. Mahendra Chaudhary, had this to say about Fiji's Girmitias.
ये जो दुख तकलीफ आज आप काट रहे हैं, एक शायद जो हमारे पूर्वज आए थे भारतवर्ष से 120 वर्ष पहले, उससे कहीं ज्यादा कम है। वो लोग बहुत दुख तकलीफ काटे थे हमारे लिए, चाबुक भी खाए थे, 14 घंटा दिन में काम कराया जाता था उनसे।
Within 50 years of arrival, the brave Indian workers transformed the hostile Fijian land into a thriving sugar-producing farms. Fiji progressed from a subsistence economy towards a modern economy, and the world heralded it as a paradise. However, despite toiling the Fiji's land for more than 100 years, the Girmitias and the children never enjoyed full democratic rights as other races in Fiji. This is aptly demonstrated by the fact that they are not even allowed to own the land they have been cultivating for more than a century, a phenomena which does not exist in any other democratic country in the world. The Indo-Fijian community in Fiji has been a victim of racial discrimination in Fiji from the day they set foot in Fiji. The fate of their descendants therefore is directly linked to more than 100 years of racism faced by the Girmitias and their descendants. Let us see.